If you've ever read the Bible and had your head spin just a little bit, this might be for you. Our men's group on Wednesdays has been studying the book of Romans, and as we were reading through it the last few weeks, it came up with a couple of things that were very helpful to me in understanding the book of Romans better. So here I want to share it with you. It's about how do we live. There's 3 levels that we can live on. The first level is really the law of the flesh. The law of the flesh is about just kind of doing whatever we want. It's more about sin that can be planted as a seed. It talks about that in different areas of the Bible. And that out of that seed often comes death, a spiritual death. And that person that enabled us to be able to live at that level is Adam. He was the first person to live at that fleshy level, was not created to live that way, but ended up living that way. And that level really has no righteousness, or it's not a high concern, typically. The second level is the law of righteousness, kind of the idea of right and wrong, and that person was characterized by Moses. Moses was the person that God gave the law to, and Paul talks a lot about this. In the first part of the book of Romans, in 1 and 2, he talks about that death has come into the world through the unrighteous aspects of people. And so he talks about that in Romans 1 and 2, this idea that there's depravity in the world and that we've all bought into it in some way. And then he talks about how God gave Moses the law, so it kind of gave an idea of what was right and what was wrong. So Adam sinned first by not following God's command. Then Moses was given the commands to say, okay, here's right and wrong. And that most people at that time, at least those that wanted to follow God or had some care of righteousness, were aware that there was a way to do it, a right way and a wrong way. But the problem was, if we were honest with ourselves, and if we are today, that even though we do things right and we do things wrong, we all get it wrong at times. And that's what in Romans 3:23 it says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. It's like this level of right and wrong given by Moses is never meant to get us to God's righteousness. What it oftentimes does is that we establish our own righteousness, whether it's morality or going to church. We do some things right, but we all inevitably do things wrong. And that's where no one can get past that level. This level, the law of flesh to the law of righteousness, is all about works. We find some way to get from this not caring about righteousness to establishing some type of righteousness of our own. And we then stand on that righteousness thinking that we'll be righteous before God. But that's not how this whole thing all works. And so what Paul talks about in Romans is there's a third level, this law of the Spirit, which is where God actually established his righteousness. And there's no way to get to that level with anything that you bring to the table. It doesn't matter. All fall short of the glory of God. No one gets to God's righteousness level without it accepting it as a gift from God. It's not something you bring. You bring nothing to the party. You accept that gift of faith, and that faith, grace that comes to you through faith, gets you to that level of the law of the Spirit, which is God's righteousness, and obviously was, or not, maybe not obviously, but came through Jesus. It's like, which level of life do we want to live on? Do we want to live on the law of the flesh, the law of right and wrong, or the law of Moses, or the law of the Spirit of God's righteousness? That's ultimately what Romans is about. And if you read through it, you can see where Paul keeps going back and forth from those different levels. That's hopefully a tool that will bring something to you if you stay up late at night wondering what Romans is about. And if you don't, it's still a good reminder of which level of life do we care to live at.